And with that, I'll read a short excerpt from the novel. The part that I'm going to read is the first few pages, and I'll let you try to decipher the deeper meaning of the first sentence. Chapter 1, Old Man's Wisdom, November 1934. I gazed into the butcher's window, and there, sandwiched between a goose and a sheep's head, my mirrored image stared back at me. I'm perfect, I told my reflection. I thrust my arm forward and clicked my heels. Heil Hitler. Frau Silberstein stepped out of the butcher's doorway. Michael, why are you saluting dead animals? Put your arm down before someone sees you. Feeling my face turning red, I stared at the cobblestone street, and like a balloon that had lost its air, I let my arm drift to my chest. Tell your mama that I will see her tomorrow for coffee, said as she rode off on her bicycle. Michael! Michael! I lifted my head, shielding my eyes from the sun, and turned to see who was calling me. From the doorway of the bakery across the street, Frau Bummel was waving to me. I have the flour milk for your mama, she called. As I stepped off the high curb, I stumbled on a loose cobblestone and jetted onto a road, just as a hay cart pulled by an ox rumbled past. Watch where you're going, little boy, the driver shouted. Frau Bummel held the bakery door open, and the tantalizing smell from buttery cakes, sugar-laden pastries, and freshly baked bread made me forget about how humiliated I had felt just moments ago. Guten Tag, Frau Bummel. Her tall, slim build cast a looming shadow over me, and as I stared up at her, I marveled at the neatly braided buns on either side of her head. Hello, Michael. How was school today? Gut, danke. She reached into her display case and handed me a raspberry-filled donut. Here, eat, eat. I'll be back in a moment. She stepped behind a curtain into the back room. I bit into the jelly donut. We had special doctors come to our school today. Some of the raspberry filling dripped onto my shirt. Yeah. I rubbed at the red stain, but I only created a bigger mess. And the doctor who examined me said, you, Michael boy, are a perfect Aryan. That's nice. She reemerged from the back room and plunked a 10-kilogram sack down on the counter. A plume of flour settled over everything. She peered across the display case, and her mouth twisted. Oh, I think you're too small to carry this home. I can manage, I said as I brushed the flour out of my hair. I'm almost 7.5. I reached for the bag and tugged on it, but it wouldn't budge. It's much too big for you, Michael. Tell your mama that her Bummel will bring it by later today. I punched the sack. All right, but one day I'll be strong enough to carry big things. You will. Run along now. Auf Wiedersehen, Frau Bummel. Danke for the donut. The bell above the door clanged, announcing my departure. I caught sight of Frau Silberstein outside the florist, 2 stores up the street from the butcher's shop, placing a bunch of yellow carnations in her bicycle basket. She got on her bike, wobbling as she maneuvered her way through a gauntlet of older Hitler-Jugend kids who were dressed in their crisp uniforms, brown shirts and black shorts. Jude, they yelled after her. Jude! For a minute, I watched her bumping along the cobblestone street, but she never said a word to those boys as they laughed and joked amongst themselves. My older brothers, the twins Kurt and Peter, but not Gunther, were already in the Hitler-Jugend, and my 2 sisters, Susie and Paula, were at the BDM, the League of German Girls. As I ran home, taking the shortcut through Herr Zimmermann's farm, I began to imagine how in a few years I too would receive a letter from Adolf Hitler himself, summoning me to join the Deutsche Jungvolk. Papa would be proud of me then. The crisp air filled my nostrils as I ran through the grasses of Herr Zimmermann's sheep pasture. Ahead of me was a wooden fence that separated the sheep from the potato field. I took a deep breath and began sprinting towards it, yelling, I'm special! And like a firecracker propelled by gunpowder, I shot into the air and almost, but not quite, sailed over the fence. My trailing leg caught on the top rail, and I found myself dangling from the fence, my head on the ground. I hung upside down like that for a minute or two, and that's when I realized how beautiful Herr Zimmermann's farm was. Then I flipped my legs forward and landed with a thud on my back. I jumped up, pulled my jacket straight, and took a deep breath. Next time. I told myself as I did a quick surveillance. Good. No one had seen me. And with that, I'll end it. And thank you for listening.